Well, good morning, dear students, and welcome to Leadership 3301 Survey of Leadership Models Online. We will go through a series of topics in the course, and then each topic will be broken down into sub-lessons. This one, we're in Topic 1, Lesson 1, and as we study the Introduction to Leadership Models. Topic 1 is divided into four subtopics as follows. The first is how organizations work, then differences between leaders and managers, models of leadership, strategies for developing a personal leadership style. You will notice that beside how organizations work, I have also provided models of church operation. I want to remind you that churches are organizations just like other organizations. Churches may be the house of the living God, but they operate in different models, and we will look at some of these models, particularly in this lesson. We have three more lessons beyond this one, differences between leaders and managers, which is very interesting, and models of leadership. You will see that the way that organizations work and that the models of leadership have a lot of similarities. Leaders, a lot of times, gradually determine how the organization works, and strategies for developing a personal leadership style will also be of interest to you. Now, no one style of leadership fits every situation because no one model of organizational operation is employed by every organization. Organizations do not work the same way. Not long back, one of my friends was talking to me about Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, and she said, well, that's been debunked. Well, my friends, everything has been debunked, and everything has value. The leadership models that we look at, you will see that there is no one right way, that there are many right ways, and it depends upon the time, the circumstances, and the task that you're trying to accomplish. But keep in mind that there is no one organizational, operational manner. Organizations don't work the same way. I know many of you are training to be church leaders, and you may go to one church and it may operate one way, and you go to the next church and it may operate a different way, and the third church may operate a different way. In my life, I have pastored several churches. The first church I pastored, a little church, I pastored there 2 years, the next one 2 years, the next one 2 years, the next one 5 years, the next one 5 years, and the next one 22 years or 21 years. Churches just don't operate the same way. There's no two churches, no two organizations that operate exactly the same way. What we're going to look at are some models of operation of how organizations work, and they will be general models, so that you can kind of see, well, this church tends towards this or it tends towards that. Business, industry, education, and religion operate using many different types of operation. I want you to think just a moment. If you were in a Catholic church, do you think it might operate differently than, say, a Pentecostal church or a Baptist church? Yes. Churches use many different types of organizations and operations. Prior to the examination of leadership models, we begin examining differences in how organizations work, because I believe that when you analyze the organization that you go into, you will, based on that, make some assumptions about how you should lead. Now, specifically, we will examine the autocratic model, the familial model, the bureaucratic model, the political model, and the supportive model. Autocratic model, of course, is management by authority. Familial model, management by consensus. Bureaucratic model, management by process. Political model, managed by referee. And the supportive model, management by relationships. The autocratic model is the first one that we will examine, and that's management by authority. This model has its roots in the Industrial Revolution, in which owners made decisions while the employees obeyed the order. The boss said, we're going to do this, so we're the employee, we did this. The boss made all the decisions, the employees did the work. The model asserts that employees need to be instructed and motivated to produce while managers do all the thinking and planning. This process is formalized with the managers holding the authority to give commands to the people. You almost see the manager standing on the hill and handing down the authority to the people and the command of what they are or not to do. The autocratic model the manager has almost absolute power to hire, fire, and inspire. Some say, and to perspire, put them to work. Employees are less valuable than managers as they are less skilled and are not as critical to the organization. Or at least that's what this model holds. And that's one of the fallacies of this model, is that it holds managers so much higher than it does employees. The view is often held that employees do not take responsibility and managers have to supervise their work to obtain the desired levels of productivity. This is kind of a theory X, theory Y management. In other words, the employees are out to get away with what they can get away with, and the manager has to ride herd over them to make them produce. In the autocratic model, it's very much alive within the ranks of many spiritual organizations and churches. In other words, there are those, it may be a deacon, it may be a pastor, who think that, man, we are the authority, and here is the word of the Lord, and you will obey it. In these organizations, only one person has the authority to set direction, as this individual rates directly with the Lord to determine the path forward and the decisions to be made, and the people are viewed merely as resources. Some of the pros of the autocratic model: it allows for decisions to be made quickly. If only one person is making a decision, then that one person makes the decision and you move on. And it's very suited for those lacking experience. If the employees or the members of the group or the organization don't have experience, it doesn't matter, because the manager is the one that has the experience and says, here's what we're going to do. But this is very applicable for maintaining the status quo. The autocratic model rolls on, and change becomes very difficult. The con is that it puts the pressure of performance on the leader, and it reduces stress on the followers. There's very low employee satisfaction. Sometimes leaders carry so much weight in these models that they get burned out and they just almost implode. It empowers too much dependence on the leadership. If something happens to the leader, then everybody's lost. They don't know what to do. And this model often eliminates innovation and creativity. When you kill innovation and creativity, then in time you have killed the organization. So the autocratic model is an old model of leadership, but it's really not one that is very relevant in our day and time, even though it is very much alive and very much in operation. The familial model is management by consensus. As I think about this model, I remember when I was 18 years old and I pastored my first church. It was a little country church, probably 25 people in attendance, all of them family. And when we did something, everybody talked about it, and they decided what they wanted to do, and then it was done. The pastor had an equal vote with the deacon, and the deacon had an equal vote with the piano player, and the piano player had an equal vote with the custodian, and everyone had an opinion. Nothing, those are very dear memories that I have of pastoring and leading that congregation. They were good people, and I loved them, and they loved me, but we were part of a family. The familial model is based on the concept that everyone is working as colleagues, holding equal value to the organization. The difficulty with this model is that it's easy to sustain in a small, very small institution or organization, but it's very difficult to sustain in a very large institution. As a matter of fact, some say that it is impossible to sustain a familial model in a large organization. This model operates more like a family. No one person or party makes the decisions. Familial organizations recognize and value the viewpoints of the individual members, and decision rests with the group as a whole, and cooperation and participation are key in this model. I think about operating as a family. When the family works together to make a decision, some men make the mistake of thinking they're going to make all the decisions, and sometimes women do the same thing. But when you're a family, you have to work together, and you have to hear all of the voices. Everyone is important. Now, the familial model has some pros. Very harmonized working environment, and it has strong relationships, and it empowers teamwork among the family. But the dangers of conflict between the members. Anytime you get one member of the family fighting with another member of the family, you've got serious problems, and there's a lot of chances of role conflicts, and all members may not participate. In that first church that I pastored, they had a discussion as to where the piano should sit. Grandma, who had played the piano for years, wanted it to sit one place. Her daughter wanted it to sit another, and her granddaughter wanted it to sit another. And I'm just a young pastor there. I just preach there. I don't really know what all's going on with where the piano sits, and really don't care. And my lens, you come one Sunday and the piano would be in one place. The next Sunday it'd be moved to another. The next it'd be moved to another. Then it'd be moved back. And finally, they eventually made peace. But there was a lot of conflict before those things were finalized. I think they made peace after Grandma died. Then mother and granddaughter reconciled where it would sit. Familial models are very vulnerable to conflict between members. It can be a wonderful environment to work in, but really familial model only works in small organizations. The bureaucratic model, or management by process, is a very common model. In the bureaucratic model, bureaucracy matters. Everyone is just essentially a cog in the machine. The organization gets divided into hierarchical layers and departments, each with purpose and boundaries defined by written job descriptions. Rules and procedures matter more than employees and innovation, and decisional authority flows downward from the centralized part. I remember many years ago, I pastored a church for 21 years, almost 22. And early on in that church, we had this lady join our church, and she comes in, and she's a disruptor. She intends to impose bureaucracy on that church. And I don't like the bureaucratic model. I don't like operating in it, and I will show you why in a minute. But she's going to write the pastor a job description. And I laughed. I told the church in open business meeting, I said, well, you can write a pastor's job description. You won't write it for this pastor, but maybe your next pastor will accept something like that, because I objected very strongly to what she was trying to do. I'm not interested in bureaucracy and the rules. I'm interested in the people. But the bureaucratic model is a very viable method of operation, and many churches are extremely bureaucratic in how they operate. And they're that way because bureaucracy maintains efficiency and productivity. You make fewer errors, and it's very cost effective. The problem with the bureaucratic model is that it is inflexible. And by inflexible, I mean it resists change. And things that quit changing die. If you kill innovation and creativity, and that is exactly what the bureaucratic model does, then what you have done is killed your ability to change, and when you kill your ability to change, you kill yourself. Churches that are bureaucratic may be of the form that Jesus has removed the candlestick, and they're still just plodding along. The bureaucratic model is slow to adapt, it resists change, and it's very inefficient. Now, I want to explain that. How can it be cost effective and few errors and be inefficient? The reason it is inefficient is because everybody does their assigned task, whether that task is needed or not. I'm reminded of the movie The Young Victoria, where Prince Albert was upset because the windows were cleaned only on one side. Well, that was this person's job to clean one side of the window, and it was this person's job to clean the outside of the window. One person lit the fire, and those type things. You get into a lot of waste of labor when you segment in that manner. But again, the bureaucratic model is very much at work in churches and other organizations. The political model is an interesting model, management by referee. Really what this model is about moving an organization. And when you move an organization forward, or you move it from point A to point B, then those people who perform assume the roles of leadership, while those people who cannot perform fall back. In the political model, groups often have different goals and compete with one another for a piece of the pie. The leader becomes the one who can position the group for successful competition. This administrator may be very effective in moving the organization forward. This one may not. The one who is effective begins to get a hold of the resources and all of the things that they need, while the ineffective leader doesn't really get their share of the pie. Resources in a political model are distributed based on set policies, less on set policies than they are on relationships the leader has within the organization. Leaders are forced to fight for their turf within the organization. A changing, dynamic institution often falls into the political model. Political model, the pro of it, empowers and promotes based on competence. It strengthens bonds between leaders and component employees, and those who perform are rewarded. The cons are that a lot of times it divides the organization into silos. This is my area, you stay out. I'm working on it. This is my area, you stay out. I'm leading this area. Well, that being divided into silos weakens the organization in the long run. And resources are distributed based more on personality than on need. They're distributed based on who the leader is more than they are on what is truly needed for the organization to prosper. You may have a very needful area, but you have a leader that is not forceful and charismatic, and therefore that area doesn't get the resources that it needs. The supportive model emphasizes the need for motivated, inspiring leaders capable of motivating staff to their highest level of performance. This is more about supporting the people, growing the people within the organization so that they can be motivated and accomplish the tasks that they need. This model is very strongly based on building the relationship between the manager and the staff, and the model emphasizes the treatment that is given to employees on a daily basis. The model is founded on the belief that employees are self-motivated to perform at a high level. I have worked about 9 years plus here in the United Arab Emirates in the Arab world, and sometimes the areas that I've worked in have not been really aligned with what I would call American norms of operation. There might be said to be a class system, and I was associate provost over an area, leading admissions registrar, and that when one of my registrar staff came in, he was Indian nationality. He was very concerned because his mother had died, and we were going into registration, and he wanted to go to India and see his mother. Well, in the previous administration over that area, he would not have been allowed to. Now, I don't operate that way. I believe in supporting people. If I ask them for 110%, then I give them 110%. I told him, I said, look, this is your mother. You go take care of your mother and your family and be with them during this time of loss. We will figure out how to do registration. Even if I have to go work your desk, we will get it done. Well, that's more an example of a supportive model. Because when he was supported, he came back and he was very loyal to his manager. But if I asked him to do something extra, he was always willing to do extra in return because I had done extra for him. What you find in the supportive model is that it is a give and give situation. I remember what my wife's grandfather told her about marriage when we were getting married 44 years ago. He told my wife, he said, marriage is not 50-50. He said, marriage is 100-100. He said, you give 100, you give 100%, and both of you do, to each other, and then you have a good, strong marriage. Pretty good advice. I think he was very much into the supportive model. Now, the supportive model has values and grows employees, and it recognizes the importance of employee insight into providing operational effectiveness. Keep in mind that we are basically people-determined organizations. And when organizations are determined by people, then people are very important. And when you grow your people and you support your people, then you benefit. Some of the cons, it can lead to feelings of unfairness within employee groups. One employee may be jealous that something was done to help another employee grow, and even though they don't want the same thing, they're jealous, and a feeling of jealousy lands, and it grows into a root of bitterness, and eventually it may disrupt the organization. And team members may feel their input is less valued than that of others. We will talk about this more when we get into some of the actual models of leadership, but this is how organizations work. Now, here's some questions for considerations. Do churches operate differently from one another? And how do you believe that a church should operate? Well, I've kind of answered the first question for you, but what is your view of how a church should operate? How effectively might an inspirational and innovative pastor fit into a bureaucratic church? And do some pastors view themselves as the only authority within the church? If so, what organizational model are they wishing to impose? We will continue our journey in the videos ahead. These lessons are simply intended to cause you to think about what you value and what you do not value. You certainly will find that there is no one right way to lead, one right way to operate. There are many ways that can be used to accomplish a given task. The wise leader examines and chooses methodology that is more effective within the organizational environment. And I certainly hope you enjoyed this video. I want you to enjoy this class and to get something out of it. May you have a good day.